What are the greatest injustices you experienced in your life? I was emotionally abused by my toxic sister. We are both African American, and she projected outward confidence and maintained a facade of superiority. She hated herself severely and projected her insecurities on me. She called me ugly, said I was worthless, nobody wanted me, nobody would respect me. She gaslighted me, she challenged me at every chance, and she hated me for looking like her. She fooled our parents and grandparents into thinking she absolutely me were close, but in reality, she was abusive. And that's not all of it. Dad married a gold digger. He's worth many millions, gave her everything in the will. She doesn't let him pay for my lunch, but helps her son buy $1 million home. Dad buries his head in the sand. Got promoted a few months ago, but due to my current group not being able to handle it without me, I've been juggling both jobs. Someone quit, and nobody knows how to do her job, so my boss tells me I will be taking over the position as well. Also, he's taking someone off another project, so I can pick it up. So I'm basically half-assing 4 jobs, and haven't seen a promotional raise or anything yet. My aunt has been working 17+ years for a retail company, only to find out she won't get a pension when she retires. They cut her hours despite being full-time, and now she's lost her health insurance because she doesn't meet the required hours. 30 hours, and they schedule her 29.5 or some stupid shit like that. Now she can't get her medicine for her diabetes, and she can't afford cataract surgery, so she will most likely go blind sometime soon. It just get up how capitalism works, and seeing it in real time sucks. I wish I could help more. I lost my job to a layoff, fought for 2 years to keep my relationship alive. When our lease ended, my ex-fiancé up and disappeared on me without a goodbye or explanation. I had to rely on my parents for charity to stay afloat, and they just up and decided to stop helping 3 weeks after my ex-fiancé abandoned me. I can't make any sense of it. The abuse my ex-husband inflicted upon me. He spent 9 years verbally, emotionally, physically, and psychologically harming me, while also effectively being a deadbeat that refused to maintain gainful employment, made many financially irresponsible decisions, and rarely contributed to housework. He also had a laundry list of issues, including alcoholism, hoarding, serious anger issues, etc. And he still had the audacity to demand children. Nope, that's not happening. When I finally got fed up with it all and left him last year, he had the gall to ask for money. Thankfully, I had enough evidence and documentation to prove his nefarious and malicious behavior, and so I didn't end up having to pay him. But, nevertheless, fast forward several months. I was invited to testify on behalf of a legislative bill regarding domestic violence and gun safety. I even spoke with my lawyer before my testimony to ensure it was safe for me to do so. She gave me the green light. He found out, got mad, threw a fit, found me under the guise of darkness, and basically threatened me, telling me that speaking up could be a career killer and that now the whole world will think he's an abuser. I didn't even invoke his name during my testimony. I was extremely vague in my speech and basically just said that domestic violence doesn't discriminate and that it can happen to anyone regardless of gender, nationality, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, disability, religion, etc. Fast forward another 2 months. I get 2 lovely little letters in the mail, one from the IRS and one from the comptroller for the state I live in. Apparently, my ex-husband accrued debt, failed to deal with it like a responsible adult, shoved his head up his ass, and let it go to collections. Because the debt was accrued while our marriage was still legally in effect, but after we had already been separated for 6+ months, both the IRS and comptroller yanked our federal and state tax refunds to the tune of several $1,000s. Our divorce settlement paperwork states both parties are to cooperate with one another if any tax deficiencies are identified, and to cooperate in the remediation of any tax liabilities. Surprise, surprise, he has failed to cooperate. He refuses to communicate with or respond to my emails, refuses to respond to emails from my attorney, and he won't even return phone calls or outreach from the IRS and comptroller. I know he's alive because several mutual friends and his own father all took my side in the divorce, and they've quietly informed me that they've seen him at various events every so often. So, it's not like he's laying dead in a morgue somewhere. He's just choosing to avoid adult responsibilities. He has faced zero consequences for his actions. Meanwhile, I'm left with permanent physical injuries as a result of his abuse, not to mention the mental and emotional anguish I experience as a result of all his issues, not to mention that somehow I'm still the one cleaning up the financial and legal messes he has made, even after I left him. My parents lost their house to foreclosure a few years ago. I tried to help, called one of those numbers online that promise to save your house, or at least buy you time before foreclosure proceeds. Turned out to be a literal scam. The arbitration company absconded with a couple $1,000s and vanished off the face of the earth. Thankfully, the bank refunded the money that had been paid, but it's not like the scammers lost the money they'd stolen. That money had to go to paying movers for my parents, because they'd blown their last few months in their house hoping that this Hail Mary would pan out. The house itself was lost under some pretty walloping circumstances, too. It was a single-family home in a nice suburb of a small Midwestern city. It had 2 floors, 3 bedrooms, an unfinished basement and attic, and no appliances newer than 20 or 30 years old. The mortgage value was somewhere in the ballpark of $200,000. Not cheap, but nothing grandiose. My mom, still, works harder than anyone else I know. She's an educator who's worked in several different schools for most of my life. I want you to tell most people that the pithy salaries scraped up by those who work in the American education system are, well, pithy. Mom couldn't carry all the bills on her own. Dad, meanwhile, got really sick when I was about 12. I didn't realize how sick he was until after the foreclosure. As it happened, he was hopelessly addicted to the painkillers his doctors prescribed him after a major surgery. The painkillers were too strong for him to reliably operate machinery or even drive. So he was essentially out of commission as far as the workforce was concerned in the 2000s. He took early retirement and collected Social Security for years before the foreclosure. I was in the dark about most of this while it was ongoing. While embattled, my mom was struggling to keep our family's heads above water, pinching pennies and cutting costs to make ends meet. She was also trying to wean my dad off of his painkillers, which his doctors kept prescribing because it wasn't worth the suffering to make him go through withdrawal if he stopped taking them. That caused a lot of stress between my mom and dad. The actual foreclosure proceedings also started while I was still living with them, but my parents didn't want me to know about it. It wasn't until a handful of months before the foreclosure date that they finally told me what was going on, which, as I said, led to me finding the last hope, who turned out to be a scam. I was in my early 20s and living elsewhere by then. So, anyway, to sum it up, the greatest injustice I experienced was when my parents lost their modest home, effectively because my dad's doctors prescribed him opioids, removing him from workforce candidacy while his Social Security went to pay for his addiction medication. Meanwhile, my hardworking mom couldn't afford the mortgage payments on her full-time salary as an educator, and even pinching pennies didn't help. To add the cherry on top, when I finally knew what was going on and tried to help, I talked my parents into a scam I fell for, which gave them false hope until a week before foreclosure. What do you think about this story? Write in the comment your opinion. On my channel, you can watch other revenge or cheating stories. See you soon, my dear viewer.